Good day, everyone, and welcome to this IBC Advanced Alloys webcast and conference call. I'm Jim Sims, Director of Investor and Public Relations with IBC. Before we begin today's webcast, just a few reminders. Slides from today's presentation and the audio of this call are being broadcast live over the web. A recording of the broadcast is being made, and a replay will be available on the IBC website following the broadcast. And that's at www.ibcadvancedalloys.com. After our formal presentation, you'll be able to ask questions of the company using the questions pane on your computer screen or handheld device. Simply type in your question and click send. Those connected via our listen-only phone line can pose questions by emailing those to me at jim.sims, S-I-M-S, at ibcadvancedalloys.com. Or you can text your questions to me at 303-503-6203. We may not be able to get to all your questions today during the webcast, but we'll certainly get back to everyone who poses a question. So let's get started with our presentation. We will be making forward-looking statements on this presentation, and viewers are cautioned not to place undue reliance on such forward-looking information and statements. Joining us today is Major General Duncan Heinz, United States Marine Corps retired. General Heinz serves as President and CEO of IBC. General Heinz, please proceed.
Thanks, Jim. As you might be able to tell from my voice, I am nursing a chest cold, which is affecting my voice. So this will be a particularly concise brief, and I will refrain from my normal greetings. Let's get to the key points of today's brief. First point, fiscal Q1 of 2019 showed improvement over the same quarter of fiscal year 2018, but was not a profitable quarter, and we missed our mark. However, despite the loss, I believe we can still recover, particularly in fiscal Q3 and Q4, where demand has historically been higher, to report a profitable year for the first time since the company was formed in 2007. Point 2. The loss in fiscal Q1 was largely driven by delays in shipping product from our engineered materials division. Quite simply, we ran into acceptance criteria issues which required considerable coordination with one customer and slowed down our production process. That issue has been completely resolved, and deliveries have resumed in Q2 at increased quantities. Those increased quantities will continue for the rest of the fiscal year in order to complete the order on time. Additionally, at the corporate level, we are seeing higher interest accruals for debt, including the debenture and convertible debenture units, which have several components. A significant part of the interest is in non-cash amortization of interest accretion and some equity, particularly if interest payments in the future are made in shares, as is the option of the company. Third point, receipt and installations of the new capital equipment have begun, with several minor projects and one major project now complete. This equipment, we expect, will significantly reduce costs and improve efficiency with the additional potential of new market opportunities. I will go into more detail later in the brief. As always, I remain immensely proud of our team. They continue to confront challenges and deal with adversity every day with the absolute integrity and indomitable courage. That courage was demonstrated in spades by the challenges of the acceptance criteria, ultimately resulting in a happy customer and a very acceptable path forward for IBC. The quarterly results compared to the same period last year. Overall sales were up 9.2%, but only a slight increase in gross margin and gross profit, resulting in only a slight decrease in the operating loss from $535,000 last year to $490,000 in this period. At the comprehensive level, net of tax, the loss was higher, rising to $761,000 from $602,000 last year. Again, this is principally because of interest expenses, which increased from $57,000 last year to $283,000 in this period. But not all of that $283,000 is in cash. In the table on page 3 of the financial statement, you'll see a $133,000 debit for amortization of accreted interest. This debit is a non-cash portion of the interest accrual. From the operating loss of minus $490,000 in the period, if you deduct the interest expense, depreciation and amortization, and the stock-based compensation, the EBITDA for the quarter was minus $121,000. While EBITDA is not an IFRS standard, I believe it is a good measure of operational cash flow. Let's look at each division. For the copper division, quarterly results compared to the same period last year, revenues increased 21.5%, with more than double the gross profit and gross margins increasing from 14% from 8%, and posting an operating profit of $60,000 from the year ago loss of $269,000. The division has continued to reduce costs, which is evident in the details. This $611,000 increase in sales over the last period resulted in a $329,000 increase in operating income, with similar labor costs despite the revenue increase and lower overhead and lower SG&A costs. For Engineered Materials Division, as I said earlier, our Engineered Material Division had a revenue miss. The issue with acceptance criteria for one product to one customer hurt performance. We slowed down production to make certain we weren't producing unacceptable parts and ended up delaying some of the acceptance processes for those produced parts until the criteria were firmly rectified with the customer. That has been completed to our mutual satisfaction, and we are now consistently shipping increased quantities each month to complete the order in the remainder of the fiscal year. But revenues in this quarter were 15% lower than last year, and the loss increased to $295,000 from $68,000 in the previous year, as we experienced increased labor and overhead booked against diminished revenues in the period. This will reverse during the remainder of the fiscal year with the increased shipments. We did see, however, demand in the semiconductor manufacturing sector this quarter approximate the quarter of the same period last year versus the significant increase that quarter experienced from the prior quarter of fiscal year 2017. This is indicating that some seasonality has returned and is likely to be there for the rest of the year. Corporate SG&A increased from $198,000 a year ago to $255,000 in this period due to increases in legal fees, consulting fees, and share-based compensation. The categories of the production expenses funded through the last capital raise are listed here and were discussed in the last update. The goals remain the same: to drive the next level of significant cost reductions, resolve production constraints, and we believe provide new sales opportunities as we are able to meet more customer requirements. Let's talk about those capital improvement projects. Of the list of 25 plus candidates for capital improvement projects, the company funded 14 capital improvements across both divisions. Their selection was based on return of investment determined by cost reduction, elimination of constraints, efficiency improvements, and production risk mitigation. 6 of the projects are Tier 1 improvements and 8 Tier 2 improvements. The categorization is based on cost and time and complexity to implement. I can't discuss the specifics of each for competitive reasons, but let me give you an example. One major project will reduce the cycle time of a particular process from 2 days down to 2 hours and decrease the current expenses from $2,500 per cycle to less than $700, including depreciation cost. And this project has an expected return on investment of less than 1 year. The return on investment of all the Tier 1 projects range from less than 20 weeks to 18 months. These are compelling and are expected to drive margins to significantly higher levels. The first major project completed this month, with 3 more scheduled to complete by the end of this calendar year. The remaining 2, Tier 1, are scheduled to complete in fiscal third quarter. Of the 8 Tier 2 improvements, 6 have completed in this period, 1 will complete in fiscal Q2, and 1 will complete in fiscal Q3. So regarding the outlook for the remainder of our fiscal year 2019, we expect seasonal demand to pick up substantially in the fiscal Q3 and Q4, as it has done historically, and the capital improvements we believe will drive gross margins higher on increased revenues to achieve a profitable year. Our strategic focus remains the same: improve gross margins and grow revenues. Both big and small improvements have started, and we continue throughout this fiscal year to propel us, we believe, to our best year in our company history. I discussed these risks in my last presentation, but present them again for completeness. The labor market remains tight and is getting tighter. Trade, regulatory, and tax changes continue to evolve with negative potential to market demand. Market volatility, consumer sentiment, and changes in business investment could also negatively impact market demand. Regarding the arbitration case, there has been no new updates, and the appeal still remains in the district court. Finally, the new equipment will also require new processes and adjustments as they are integrated into our production lines. Multiple iterations of process changes are possible, though again, I believe unlikely, but they could consume our remaining buffer and delay implementation and gross margin improvement. Please see the management discussion and analysis for additional risks. With that, let me take your questions.
Thank you, General Heinz. Now let's turn to questions from our audience. For those participating on the webcast, again, simply type in your question into the webcast tool on your screen, and you can click send. For those on our phone call today, you can pose your questions by emailing those to me at jim.sims@ibcadvancedalloys.com, or you can simply text me at 303-503-6203. General, our first question is this: what is the impact of the semiconductor sector on IBC's business?
So to put it in context, our last fiscal year saw a 42% increase in demand. And so we are tracking similar to the numbers and are seeing a slight decrease here in the second quarter, but firmly believe that the cycle will return again in spades, I believe, in Q3 and Q4. The manufacturing sector, particularly the semiconductors, is going through a significant retrofit of parts. And much of that retrofit will require previous acting machines to require new parts that we are producing.
All right, General, our second question is, you discussed the issue of seasonality. What are the impacts of on the company of seasonality?
Well, the impact is seen in typically Q1 and to a lesser extent sometimes in Q2, and then grows exponentially again in Q3 and Q4. Let's talk about why. So the end of Q2 is typically the holiday season, and you have all the manufacturers now ramping up for their next rollout, for their next parts, for their next improvements. All that demands higher mold counts, higher electrical semiconductors, and new improvements. And that's what we will see.
All right, General, here's a question. You announced recently a contract for a company in the satellite business. Can you discuss any further details on that? And if not, how do you see the potential future for the company of satellite parts?
Our material is particularly well suited for space applications. It is lighter and it provides stiffer properties for many of those applications. So we are completing the initial deliveries for their acceptance tests and integration. I do not believe that is going to require them to be put into space for the testing. So I fully expect that we will see increased orders in this sector through Q3 and Q4.
And a question, General, is how do you see the future of beryllium on the commercial side of your business? You seem to be doing well on the defense side, but what about other sectors?
We will begin a significant part of our marketing effort to go back out to the commercial sectors to tell them about the great properties that beryllium provides to their high-speed manufacturing processes. While the material costs more, the significant improvement in both the rate of manufacturing as well as the tightness or the air band that the material allows for positioning. We believe that is significant. That is why our material is used in semiconductor manufacturing, and I believe has great potential in other high-speed manufacturing processes. So we will continue to do that.
Okay, General, that's the last of the questions. For those who weren't able to ask a question, go ahead and please submit that to me, jim.sims@ibcadvancedalloys.com, or you can always text me, 303-503-6203, and we will get back to you with an answer. That concludes our webcast and conference call today. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care and have a great day.